Guys, welcome to another video. You've got Mr. Everything English, and today we will be doing something super important.
Everything education. Tuition for maths, English and science.
I did this last year with 4 quotes for 4 paragraphs. And if you go back and you look at the comment section of those videos, guys, it really helped those year 11s. So this year, I've had a whole year to reflect. This year, guys, I've tweaked the quotes and I'm presenting you with 6. We're gonna go over 6 quotes. I'm gonna give you the quote, I'm gonna give you the technique, I'm gonna give you the analysis, and I'm gonna talk you through how you make this quote fit lots of different questions. Now, I'm gonna give you 6 different paragraphs. On the day of your exam, remember guys, you only need to make 2 of the 6 fit. Because on the day of your exam, you are aiming for 4 paragraphs. 2 paragraphs are going to be coming from the extract that they give you on the day. The other 2 will be coming from these 6. Now guys, we need these 6 to be absolutely solid. Absolutely solid. It is unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. I sound like Mr. Burling. But guys, honestly, we will not be coming out of the exam on Monday and none of you guys are going to message me saying, "Sir, I just couldn't think of any quotes. Sir, I just couldn't think of any ideas. Sir, I only did 1 paragraph." Guys, that is not happening. Not on my watch. By hook or by crook, on that exam on Monday, all of us, every single one of us is coming out of that exam with 4 paragraphs done. Now, in an ideal world, you want to do 2 paragraphs from the extract, 2 paragraphs from the whole text. But listen to me very carefully. If you open the extract and what they give you on the day is something that completely throws you off, I'm talking to the point where you can't understand it at all, then give me or try to give me 1 from the extract and 3 from the 6 that I'm gonna give you. And worst case scenario, I don't want anyone saying, "Oh, Mr. Everything English said do this." I'm saying worst case scenario. If you can't engage with the extract at all, you can't even give me a paragraph, then you know what guys, worst case scenario, out of the 6 that I'm gonna give you, you write up 4 of them. It is better to do that than to leave your booklet empty. What I am trying to tell you guys is this: no matter what happens on Monday, we are coming out of that exam doing 4 full paragraphs. In an ideal world, we are aiming for 2 paragraphs extract, 2 paragraphs from the whole text. But if it comes down to it, you have to change accordingly. But guys, remember one thing, this is our GCSE exam. Everything comes down to this. So no matter what happens guys, Monday we are doing 4 paragraphs. And now guys, I will help you so much because I am now going to go through the 6 quotes that I believe can fit 99.9999% of questions. Alright guys, let's switch over to the board and let's begin. Should you ever require tuition, lessons, classes for English, maths or science, do head over to everythingeducation.co.uk. All of our English classes are taught by myself, Mr. Everything English, and our science and maths classes are taught by fully qualified teachers. Upon joining, you get access to our student portal. This is where you hand in your homework, receive your feedback, and you can chat to your teachers, including myself. So guys, should you require any support with your English, maths or science for any exam board, do head over to everythingeducation.co.uk or click the link in the description. So let's now go over the quotes that you need to learn for Romeo and Juliet. And guys, I promise you, these 6 quotes are going to be enough. Now, before some clever clogs in the comment section start saying, "Sir, will it be plagiarism if we use this in our exam?" Of course not, my friend. Please give me a break. Of course it's not plagiarism because you are using my ideas. That's what teaching is. When your teacher is standing in front of the class and they are giving you a gazillion ideas, that is the heart, that is the essence of teaching. Your job is to turn these into paragraphs. So guys, it is not plagiarism. Please take my ideas and turn them into beautiful grade 9 paragraphs. Now behind me I have 6 paragraphs. You only need to make 2 of them fit on the day of your exam, because the other 2 paragraphs we will get from the extract. Now let's begin. Quote number 1, guys, is said by the friar in Act 2, and it is a warning. He is warning the characters, listen, you guys need to take it easy. You guys need to relax, because violent delights have violent ends. Now, of course, it's the oxymoron of violent delights. But what does this quote mean? Like, this quote is a fantastic quote. Violent delights have violent ends. Let's look at the first part. Violent delights. Things that feel good, but they quick and they quick and they quick. They're violent in nature, meaning they happen so quick. It doesn't mean bloodshed. It means they happen so quick. For example, Romeo loves Juliet, Juliet loves Romeo. Apparently, it's on impulse. It's violent, it's quick, it's aggressive. It's not thought out. The families don't even know. You barely know each other. But the lust you have for each other is based upon your feelings. It's a violent delight. But he then says, be careful. Just because you think what you're doing is correct, just because it feels good, doesn't mean it's the right thing to do, because things like this have a terrible consequence, because a violent delight has a violent end. And that word violent in that context means bloody, means terrible, means fatal. He is telling them that something that feels good, something that happens quick, will at the same time have a terrible consequence. Guys, he is warning these characters that you need to be careful how you're treading. Do not be selfish. Do not act upon your desires. Do not act upon your whims. Think about what you're doing. Because something done in a moment can have consequences that last a lifetime. A violent delight can have a violent end. And that's exactly what happens in this text. These 2 lovebirds, if you like. Guys, if you haven't noticed in my previous videos, I absolutely hate the character Romeo. He's such a moist wet wipe. But, don't put that in your exam because then you're going to fail. But, these 2 characters are so selfish. They ruin, destroy their entire family and everyone around them for their silly little love story. But when we look at context, I want you guys to bring in Freud and the id. Now, you might get someone saying, sir, my teacher said that you can't use Freud because Freud was a theory that was released after the play. Duh. Every piece of context is released after the play. If you've ever met someone who's done like an English degree or has a literature background, guys, every time you read a book, every time you read a poem, what do? You apply critical theory to that text. All that theory is written after. Why would the context for the play come out before the play was written? That doesn't make sense. Secondly, it's a very intellectual, high-level way of writing when you apply theory to literature. Guys, Freud is grade 9 context. If you understand it, use it. If you don't understand it, leave it. But let me explain it one more time. Freud is the guy's name, and he was a psychologist, and he analyzed the human brain. And he said that our brain has a part in it, and he called it the id. And he said that this part of the brain controls our instincts. We have the instinct to survive. For example, if somebody comes through that door with a shotgun, I'm not going to say, excuse me, mate, I'm in the middle of a lesson, wait there. I'm going to either fight with him or I'm going to run out the door over there. I'm going to fight or flight because my survival instinct is now activated. But put that instinct away for now. The instinct that I want you to focus on is that Freud said that one of our ids is the instinct to worship. He said that everyone worships something. Whether you worship football, whether you worship God, whether you worship money, whether you worship Kim Kardashian, every single human being, according to Freud, worships something. Now, Guys, what does Romeo, why did my head do that? What does Romeo and Juliet worship? Guys, they are slaves to themselves and their desires and each other for that argument. You can argue they worship themselves because they do what makes them happy. You can argue they worship each other because they do what makes the other person happy. Or you can argue that the third thing they worship is their desires. They do whatever they want without caring about the consequences. They are slaves to their id of desire. And that is why violent delights have violent ends. Oof, guys, and that is the foreshadowing of this quote. Guys, isn't that a lovely quote? Isn't that an amazing quote? Now, how would you go about using this quote? Guys, this quote can naturally, of course, be used for Romeo and Juliet because it really does present them as selfish characters. It really, really does. All they care about is themselves. They took no heed. They take no lessons from anyone around them. You can use it to link it to families. How? In this quote, guys, I feel sorry for their families. Their families are a victim of what? They're a victim of their childish desires. Because of them, their families had a violent end. Yes, Romeo died and Juliet died, fine. But you left behind carnage. You left behind destruction. So the families in this quote could be seen as victims of what the kids do. So this quote, guys, is a very, very nice quote. It's a very, very nice quote. Now, last year the question was, look at the difficulties faced by Juliet. Let's say you get a question on, look at the difficulties faced by Romeo. Guys, Romeo is torn. Romeo is in a battle between his desires and the consequences of his desires. Should I? Shouldn't I? Should I? Shouldn't I? That's also how you can use this quote. Alright, guys. Quote number 2. Guys, I have an app, Everything Education. There is an app in the App Store and an app in the Play Store. So if you click the link in the description, do go and download the app. The app has almost 15,000 questions and it is updated weekly. I believe it's on the verge of becoming one of the best apps for your learning. It covers everything for English, everything for maths, and everything for science. So guys, do head over to the App Store or the Play Store and do download the Everything Education app. This guy, Romeo, I swear to God, he thinks he's so bad. When the love of his life dies, when the apple of his eye, when the wind beneath his wings, when his... I'm getting carried away, guys. I had to calm down. When Juliet dies, when the character of Juliet dies, Romeo puffs his chest and says, "I defy you, stars." Wow, what a man. Not really. But anyway, Romeo in this quote, guys, he's complaining about fate. He's complaining about destiny. Because stars is a symbol of God and worship and fate and destiny. And Romeo is saying, I defy you. I'm going against you. He's waging a war against all of that world. This guy, little Romeo, who couldn't even protect Juliet, is waging a war against fate and destiny. But don't put that in your exam. That's just something you want to understand about the character of Romeo. Romeo, guys, has no concept of reality. He doesn't understand the damage he causes. He doesn't ever hold himself account to what he does. Now, I want to bring in religion here for context because this quote goes against the idea of religion because Romeo defies everything about religion. And I want you guys to speak about the personal pronoun I. Romeo, singular, he himself openly wages a war against that. Now, how would you really use this quote? Guys, this quote shows you the damaging impact that love can have. Love can drive you insane. If you look at, like, guys, Netflix is notorious for this. Look at Netflix documentaries, like the murder documentaries, like serial killers and stuff. A lot of Netflix documentaries about serial killers are about people that are love hurt and they lose their mind and they end up doing some crazy things. Guys, love can make you go crazy. It's the juxtaposition. It's a violent delight, but it has a violent end. Do you see how I linked the two quotes? But guys, in this quote, love is presented as an absolute torture. Love is not a good thing. Love is a bad thing. But then you can flip it. Was it lust? Was it love? Was it lust? What exactly were these two up to? Now, how can you, so that's how you link it to the character of Romeo, for example. How could you link it to the idea of the families? Here, guys, you could talk about how their families were doomed. I defy you, stars. This guy has no respect for fate and destiny. What is he gonna have when it comes to his family? The last point you can make, guys, with this quote, I defy you, stars, you can bring the idea of religion into it. And you can talk about how ultimately Romeo understands that, look, where's the quote, guys? Star-crossed lovers. Obviously, guys, this is a prologue. But Romeo understands. Who does he go straight to? I defy you, stars, which shows indirectly, deep down, he knows that he's powerless. He understands that this was a decision out of his hands. It was fate, it was destiny, but he's struggling to accept it. That's where the religion idea comes into this quote. Now, guys, quote number 3. This is one of the good ones, guys. This is the prologue. Now, the prologue is good to use because it comes under fate. Sorry. It comes under form. Now, what is form? Form is techniques that are specific to a text type. For example, a prologue can only be found in a play. That's why it comes under form. Now, it says a pair of star-crossed lovers. And the technique is a prologue, and the zooming in is the foreshadowing. Now, what does this quote tell us, guys? From the outset, Shakespeare tells us that this is not a story of love. It's not. Why? A pair of star-crossed lovers. Guys, imagine, here's Romeo, here's Juliet, and their stars are coming together, and that's their kissing moment. That's their chef's kiss. I don't know why I did that, guys. But anyway, they come together, right? But that's not a love, that's not a cross, that's a triangle. For them to cross, they must come together, and then they must separate for the cross to be created. Stars are crossing. That's Romeo, that's Juliet. When they met in the middle, it was a brief moment. It was a lovely moment. It was a violent delight. But it's the separation. Romeo will go his way, Juliet will go his way. So we know that this is not a love story. We know they're not going to stay together forever and ever and grow old and be happy. This is a story of downfall. This is a story of destruction. Because in the prologue, the audience is told, these guys ain't going to make it. These guys are not going to last. They're going to come together and then they will separate. But the story that's being told is the story of destruction of everything around them. How this one moment of these characters coming together completely kapoofs and destroys everything else in the text. Now, guys, you can use this quote, a pair of star-crossed lovers, to show how Romeo and Juliet were what's the word I'm looking for? They were at loss from the very beginning. They were at loss from the very beginning and they were helpless. Why were they helpless? Because there's nothing they could do about it. Destiny, fate, religion, God were using these characters to teach a lesson. Romeo and Juliet were supposed to come together. It was inevitable. And Romeo and Juliet were supposed to separate. And Romeo and Juliet were never supposed to come back together because the stars will never ever come back. Romeo and Juliet were helpless because they were used as a lesson. For who? You can argue they were used as a lesson for their families. You families, you people are the reason this happened. They had to hide their love. They had to hide their relationship. They had to do crazy things just to be together because of how the Capulets and the Montagues treat one another. So you can use this quote to talk about two things. how the characters of Romeo and Juliet are helpless because they were used by God, by religion, by fate as a means to teach a lesson. But who was a lesson being taught to? To the families and in turn to the audience. Do not put your pride, do not put your ego ahead of your children. This patriarchal society is going to destroy us if we're not careful. Alright guys, quote number 4. Hang thee, young baggage, disobedient wretch. Oof. Capulet is annoyed at this quote, guys. This quote takes place in Act 3 and Capulet is talking to his lovely, lovely daughter. And he is telling his daughter that, listen, if you don't do what I say, if you don't marry Paris, you're in some serious trouble. That's what this quote is about. But how do you want to talk about this quote? Firstly, guys, look, it's a rule of 3. Hang the young baggage, disobedient wretch. And it's an imperative because it's a command. But this quote, guys, really brings out the nasty side of gender, the nasty side of patriarchy. And you can use it to really show, firstly, male to female, and then elder to younger. Why? It shows you a few things. Number 1, when it comes to male to female, when it comes to gender, so when it comes to Capulet to Juliet, but you could replace Capulet with any other father and Juliet with any other daughter. Daughters, girls were expected to simply submit to the will of their father. It was a given. Because that was how a patriarchal society worked. Your father said jump, you said how high. But it shows the dark side. Why does it show the dark side? Guys, look at what he's saying to her. It's a threat. It's a threat to cause her pain. It's a threat, and he's then really cussing her out. Guys, it shows you how patriarchy was so inherently important to these men, way more important than these children. His reputation as a man far outweighs his love for his daughter. Far, far, far outweighs. That's why you can argue, Juliet and Romeo have a terrible end. Because these are the people they're dealing with. They're dealing with parents that don't put their children first. Their children are objectified. Their children are their objects that they do with as they wish. The second way, guys, I want you to understand this quote is, yes, male and female, but then younger and elder generation, about how there's a barrier. The elders don't understand the youngsters, and the youngsters don't understand the elders. There is a clear barrier being built. Juliet isn't like her mum. So when her mum and the nurse are telling her about how they got married and whatever they did, that's not Juliet. The old generation can't connect with the younger generation. A line has been drawn into the sand. Now, how else could you use this quote? Guys, this quote for Juliet. She's not as innocent as we thought, is she? She's not as innocent as we thought. In the beginning, she's described as a lamb and so on. She makes her family go crazy. She makes her father go crazy. Now, you could also argue that this makes Juliet look bad and makes you feel sorry for her dad. How? Guys, look. Capulet is living within a patriarchal society. You can't blame the guy. Everyone around him is like that. If people find out that his daughter is refusing to marry who he wants her to marry, that's a big disgrace for him. So in a way, you feel sorry for him because he himself is a victim of patriarchy. And look at how he changes. In the beginning of the play, he says to Paris, you gotta woo her and she's too young. But when the societal pressure is on him, the beast comes out. So you can argue, guys, in a weird way, you feel sorry for Capulet because Capulet is a victim of patriarchy, and at the same time, Juliet comes across as a very disobedient child, as a very disobedient daughter. Now, this quote, guys, Romeo failed as a man in every shape, in every possible way. Romeo failed as a man in every possible way. Romeo failed as a son. Romeo failed as a cousin. Romeo failed as a man on his own merit. And in this quote, our Romeo is failing as a husband. He's a secret. Come on, man, grow some... Can't say what I want to say, but you know what I mean. He needs a bit of courage, a bit of bravery. Knock on the door, speak to Capulet. But even at that respect, he fails and allows his partner to go through this. All right, guys, quote number 4. This is in Act 5, and it is said by the prince. And it's a nice quote, guys. All are punished. And that is literally your point for every character. Every character is a victim and suffers in some shape or form. The quote is a hyperbole because not everyone suffers. And I want you to link it to the great chain of being, the idea of hierarchy. The society that this play was set in was a very hierarchical society. And you want to argue that in this play, the actions of Romeo and Juliet, they don't discriminate. Everyone, well, not everyone, but 99% of people are forced to suffer because of the actions of somebody. From the nurse, to Juliet's mum, to Romeo's parents, to the lovers themselves, to Friar Lawrence. All of the characters are punished and suffer in some shape or form. And I want you all to look at the symbolism of punishment. Punishment is used as religious symbolism, guys. God, remember I told you at the beginning, this is not a play about love. This is a play to warn and teach people a lesson. And that is the idea of the symbolism of punishment. At the end of the play, the lovers aren't together, but at the end of the play, all of the characters are taught a lesson and they have to now fix up and live with whatever decisions they had made at that time. All right, guys, quote number 5. Deny thy father and refuse thy name. This is from Juliet, and this is in Juliet's soliloquy in Act 2. And it's a nice quote to use, guys. Why is it a nice quote to use? Because it comes across in the soliloquy, and a soliloquy is a form device, and this is when the character reveals their thoughts out of their mouth. It's their private inner thoughts. So Juliet says, deny thy father and refuse thy name. She is one piece of work, right? Deny thy father and refuse thy name. For what? You? Are you that special? Do you think you're that amazing that you're saying that this guy should leave everything for you? Guys, it shows you the character of Juliet is not as innocent as we think. Secondly, guys, I want you guys to use this quote for Romeo. Romeo almost... This quote, guys, you can talk about sympathy for Romeo. Why? Romeo ended up falling in love with a woman who was a slave to her desires for him. And you can argue she never had his best interests at heart. Otherwise, she wouldn't say that. She wouldn't want Romeo to just leave everything for her in an instant if she cared for him fully. But it shows you how Romeo could be seen as somebody who ended up with somebody who doesn't really have his best interests at heart. She's simply following her desires. And then, guys, this quote really shows you the destruction of the families. These young generation, they don't value family. They don't value the family name. It means nothing for them because all they care about is their desires. And that's where you link it back to Freud and the id. Now, guys, look, these 6 quotes, remember, you don't need all 6. On the day of your exam, you need to use 2 and make them fit. Now, I'll give you my favorite quote. My go-to quote is this one here. This one, I love it, not because of the language in the quote, but because I can make that quote fit lots and lots and lots and lots of different questions. Then, in second place, if I had to pick, it would be either Hang Thee Young Baggage or I Defy You Stars. because again, I am very good at using those quotes. So here's my advice. This is what I would do if I was you guys. I would simply go to everythingeducation.co.uk. I would then click on past papers. I would then click on English literature. I would go to paper 1. And when I go to paper 1, let's say you start with June 2017 and you work your way down through all the past papers. You open up June 2017 and you go to the Romeo and Juliet question. Guys, you open it up and you go to the Romeo and Juliet question. This one was, how does Shakespeare present aggressive male behavior? So, plan 2 paragraphs on the extract, then go to your plan. Naturally guys, out of these 6 quotes, which ones would I use? I would use this one and I would use this one. I would use this one to talk about how aggressive male behavior is born out of selfishness, and I would use this one to talk about how aggressive male behavior is violent towards women. 2 paragraphs here, 2 paragraphs extract. But then I would write these out. Then I will look at June 2018, 2019, 2020, 21, go through all the past papers and see how you make these fit. Guys, you can pre-write paragraphs, learn them and tweak them on the day of your exam. But that's the last step that I would do. Now that you have this plan, use it in as many different questions as possible. All right, guys. I hope you found this video beneficial. Tomorrow we will have Christmas Carol dropping. Thursday we will have Jekyll and Hyde. It's been Mr. Everything English. Peace.